Hey folks, before we get to the episode, I want to invite you to this month's International Directors Meetup, our monthly gathering of directors and theater makers from around the world. It's a space to share experiences, trade advice, and find support in what can often be a pretty isolating role. You can come and go as you need, drop in late, leave early, whatever fits your schedule. It's simply a chance to set aside time each month to sit alongside others who understand the work. For dates, times, and details, head to boardofdirectors.world and pull up a chair at the table. Join the board. There are people you meet early in your career who end up becoming quiet coordinates in your internal compass, even if you don't realize it at the time. For me, Pirronne Yousefzadeh is one of those people. We first crossed paths nearly 20 years ago in that strange and beautiful crucible that was Actors Theatre of Louisville. And then again in the fields of Saratoga for the city training. And then again in the halls of Columbia. It was never planned, never the path, but somehow we kept showing up in the same rooms, gathering the same tools, wrestling with the same big questions about craft and rigor and responsibility. What always struck me about Pirronne, even back then, was that she had an absolutely unshakable interior compass. Not loud, not performative, just precise. You could watch her listen to something and see the director's mind clicking into alignment, shaping an idea, sharpening it, refusing to accept the easy version of anything. Over the years, she's followed that compass through so many forms of leadership: director, educator, artistic leader. And what's remarkable is how consistently she makes space. Space for artists. Space for new voices. Space for the conversations the field is terrified of having. And the thing I love about this conversation is that it reminds me how long she has been doing that. Long before the field found vocabulary for equity or transparency or ethical process, Pirronne was already architecting rooms that worked differently. Rooms where artists could breathe. Rooms where rigor and care didn't cancel each other out. I want you to listen for the way she thinks, the clarity, the moral imagination, the craftsmanship. She's someone who has built a life in this field by following her own questions, not the industry's expectations. It's a joy to have her here. Here's my conversation with Pirronne Yousefzadeh. So, Pirronne, do you remember meeting at Actors Theatre? Or is this just an apocryphal vision in my head?
Thought we met in Saratoga.
We did meet in Saratoga, but
we had met before that?
I have this distinct memory of us being in line to get tickets for, I'm thinking, Theatre de la Jeune Lune's The Miser, while you were an intern at ATL, is that right?
I was an apprentice, yeah.
An apprentice, right. And I was assisting on Dracula. And
my gosh.
I know.
Whoa, that just came out of, like, you remember in Inside Out, like the memory graveyard where Bing Bong ends up? That's where that just came out of. It just came out of the memory graveyard.
Well, I'm glad I gave me help, I guess.
You resurrected it. No, we did. So that was, because we were in Saratoga together this summer of 2007. So that was...
Yes.
And if you were doing Dracula, so it was the fall. So it was like 2003. So it was 4 years before.
2003?
Or it might have been one of the times I was back assisting or like directing apprentices, because I went back a bunch.
I think that makes more sense, because I'm thinking it's more like 2004, 2005.
Yeah, I was back a bunch.
Somewhere around in there.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Now it's clicking. Here we are.
Now it's all clicking. Okay.
So it's been about 20 years we've known each other.
Yeah.
And at least 10 since we've talked to each other.
Yeah. Yeah, it has been. Jeez Louise. So, okay. So you apprenticed as a director or as an actor?
As an actor. At the time that which was wild, I didn't, like so many things about that were unexpected. They didn't have the directing internship at that time. And I was when I finished up college, I was applying for all of these different internships and apprenticeships. And I was mostly applying for directing. And then I went to the Midwest Theater auditions, like the where like a lot of companies show up and like summer stocks and all of those things. And I did the audition thinking I was maybe looking for some work for the summer. And I remember I was really sick, and my teacher urged me to go and do the audition anyway, even though I was like extremely sick. And I did a monologue, I think, from Two Gentlemen of Verona. And like, I think I was so drugged up and like too ill to care in a way. So like, I think I gave a better audition than I often did when I really cared and when I felt healthy. And then I got called. I didn't really get called back for much of anything except for the apprenticeship. And then I spoke with the apprentice director at that time, or no, she was like working in casting. And then anyway, I applied and ended up there. But I also got to be the apprentice who got to do a lot of directing because they didn't have a directing internship. And I was nudgy and just asked, always asked if what was possible. And it ended up being that I got to do a lot of directorial work there and a lot of assisting there.
So you knew you wanted to be a director already. Like you would finish school and like directing is what I want to do. I want to be in the theater.
Yeah.
I have this other skill I can do, but directing's where it's at.
I mean, I think I thought for a while that I would act and direct. And it was over the course of the year of the apprenticeship that I sort of reached the conclusion that I really wanted to focus on directing. Though I do oddly miss acting now from time to time, which I never thought I would. It's really weird.
God.
But like not so much in production. I enjoy doing it in sometimes at the Playwrights Center. I joke around that I'm the resident middle-aged Iranian. And so like when a playwright needs like a Middle Eastern person in their face, I'm right here.
You're stepping in.
And I do enjoy stepping into the sort of acting realm developmentally because it still accesses the dramaturgical brain and the new play brain and all of the things. And I've often thought about how like representation of Middle Eastern characters at that time was even rarer than it is now. And I wonder what my sense of like my prognosis as an actor would have been had there been roles. And whereas like the sort of dominant wisdom at the time I was coming up as an actor was that my options were to like pass as a white person or be sort of ethnically ambiguous and offer a little melanin to an ensemble in a way that no one could exactly pinpoint or pay too much attention to. And, so I do sometimes wonder about like what I would have, whether that would have kept the pursuit alive longer had it been different. But I also just wasn't a very good actor. So it's all fine. It's fine. It's okay.
I've had zero interest in returning to the stage. And it's one of those things where like I was a good actor. I was never going to be a great actor. Yeah, I'm far better at this. I'm far more interested in this. I can get up at 4:00 in the morning for this, not for that.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah. I got off book really well.
Yeah.
I was on time.
I was really good in rehearsals.
I took my notes. I really took my notes. I was a good I was diligent and low maintenance, I would say,
Yeah.
But I don't think I was transcendent in any way, shape, or form.
The other directors that have had a similar background have all basically said the same thing, that they were a very good actor in the room, very diligent. But you never needed to worry about me. Yeah, transcendent. That's the thing. So you just touched on something a minute ago, which whenever I think about your work, and obviously a limited amount of things that I have seen of yours, but I think about your dramaturgical brain, your brilliant, pick it apart, puzzle it back together brain, which is perfect for where you're at right now. Is that something that's been inherent to you from the beginning, or is that something that you developed? Like, what was it that you were searching for as an artist, as a director, as an early director? Like, did you find yourself in that, and that was a strength? Or was it something that like you had to make it work for you, make it strength for you?
I think that it was a strength and a trap, sort of originally. Like, I think, I was an English major in college. as well as theater. And so, and I really loved like English literature in high school and worked really hard on my English papers and, loved it, just loved it. Loved picking apart a text, finding the theme, finding the central metaphor. And I think that in some ways early on for me, my dramaturgical brain manifested in a way that felt, now in retrospect, academic and at times inhibiting of bold directorial vision, or where I just wouldn't take the analysis far enough or like viscerally enough to let it lead to something, alive and theatrical. And I think that there was also this sense that I had as a director that was very tied to being a high achieving good student, that was about like, doing my analysis and staging with diagonals and like sort of checking off the elements that make things good. I think, and obviously, we're going to end up talking about Anne here. And so I'm bringing up Anne because she's everything. She was sort of the first person to clock that and lovingly call me on the fact that like I had the brain, but I wasn't letting my guts into it. And I wasn't letting my soul into it. So the dramaturgy hasn't ever been the hard part. And, her exact words to me after our first assignment, where she goes around and tells everyone
you your problem,
what your problem is. And like, I remember she said like, I'm going to give you the note you're going to work on for the rest of your life. And I was like, dear God.
Yeah.
And she was going around to my classmates and like, talking about some dramaturgy stuff with some of them. And I was like, well, she's not going to say that to me. Dramaturgy's great. Sitting there in my mid-20s, feeling myself. And then she was like, Pirronne, I want you to stop directing from your head and start directing from your ovaries. And I looked down towards my womb and I looked up at her and I said, what does that mean? And she said, exactly. And it's been almost 20 years and like still, I think about that assignment all the time. I think about that note all the time. And I find myself sometimes in rehearsals being like, it's not coming from there yet. Like, what's blocking me right now, So the dramaturgy is like, it's key, it's integral. And it's also not the thing that makes the work memorable, And I guess that's been the sort of the pursuit, I think, of like knitting the dramaturgical brain to the gutsy directorial soul,
I really like that. The dramaturgy is not what makes it memorable, but unless you've got that foundation there, then you're just throwing spaghetti at a wall.
Totally.
And like, I went to a really messy, ugly play last night. I remember that, but like,
right.
The story that we tell to ourselves. What was I watching last night? And it was Ethan Hawke was talking about working with Sidney Lumet. Him and Philip Seymour Hoffman were doing a film together, and he was saying that actually that the film for Sidney Lumet's films don't start until the film is done. That when the film finishes, like a starting bell begins, because then the discussions and the questions and everything that the film brought up begins to work on the mind.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what the dramaturgy allows for. The memory lets it stick, and then the dramaturgy allows for us to then replay the play in our heads and ask those questions. I like that. Yeah, I remember her saying "direct from your ovaries" to someone, but I couldn't remember if it was you or not. So
it was me, and it's still me. God. It's still me 20 years later, and I think I've taken the note. I think I am. I've been working on it. And, but I think like this is the thing about, when people ask me like, so what was graduate school like? Which is such a complicated question with such a complicated answer. But, and this is not to say that I did not receive the tools and the feedback from both Anne and Brian and other teachers that further honed my dramaturgical toolkit and mind. And the thing that I think was so unique about Anne and so unique about my experience there was that it totally shattered and disrupted any expectation I had had about the sort of academic checklist of going to graduate school because of that note and because of the way Anne engaged with each student as the whole person and not just like a director. Like the way she thinks of it is so holistic, and it caused me to think of my role in a different way, and I continue to, I think, sort of reinvestigate that because of the depth of inquiry that she facilitated. And yeah, like I think I'll never think about the structure of Chekhov the same way because of Brian, or like, I mean, God, the way he broke down the Greeks, the way he broke down like unbelievable.
Shakespeare, everything.
I
Yeah,
still
yeah, yeah.
have my journals, and I still like go back and read my notes, and
Yeah, absolutely.
I thought I took such good meticulous notes to capture the brilliance of these teachers. And sometimes I read my notes and I'm like, I don't know what any of that means. And I hope on some level it seeped into me. It's in my bones. It's in my DNA now. But there are days where I'm like, wow, I would just go back for 3 hours and just listen to Brian talk about the seagull happily.
Oh, yeah.
Happily.
You know what's beautiful is he's written several books since then, and
Snap.
they are basically our classes. He took the pandemic seriously, like the rest of us. Like maybe we did some things, but like he wrote 5 books.
Okay, I need to.
They're basically our semesters. So it literally, like I looked at my notes, I looked at the books. It's like, oh, this is it. This is fantastic.
Okay, I need to pick these up because the time to read for pleasure is a little limited these days, but I'm going to prioritize it.
Well, I imagine that it's limited because of the position that you're in.
Yes, there's a few positions that I'm in.
There's a few positions that you're in. It's true, yes.
And I mean, I for the listener who may not know, I work at the Playwrights Center, and I'm the associate artistic director here and the director of artistic partnerships. And we do about 60 workshops a year of new work across 9 different programs for professional writers at varying stages of their careers and their artistic trajectories, and for writers both based here in Minnesota and also based all over the country. And that's not even talking about the membership program, which is not under my purview, that serves 2,500 members across the world. So we're very busy. We have a lot going on.
Yeah.
And I'm still directing, and my pandemic project was to make a baby. Brian wrote some books and some people baked some bread, and I, pursued
made a human
single motherhood by choice. Yeah. And so my 3.5-year-old Mariam is, my favorite world premiere by far, and a huge influence now in, everything, not the least of which is, how do I want to lead? What culture am I hoping to create in the rooms that I'm in that hopefully will ripple outwards and shift the culture in tandem with other people making similar efforts, and leave something behind for her that's better than how I found it. So, there's a few hats. And so if Brian's listening to this, I will read your books, Brian. I know. I need to. You're right. But yeah, the plate is full, and it's full of all the things that I asked for. I wanted to be a leader, I wanted to direct, and I wanted to be a mom. And I teach sometimes as well. And like, I feel like they're all, I don't know, it's like I'm a 4-legged chair, and like each part of each one of those things keeps me in balance, You
need to have all 3 or all 4
I
so
do.
you don't tip over.
I do.
So you've had a couple of artistic leadership positions now.
Mm-hmm.
And you're still directing as well. So how has one informed the other? Like the leadership and I mean, I'm assuming there's some directing opportunities at Playwrights Center, workshops and things like that, obviously, but also then freelance outside. So leaving to go to freelance with leadership on the home plate kind of thing, but also coming back in fresh from other ideas. How does that cycle work? How's that permutation between the two?
Yeah. There's some really practical ways that it they inform each other. I mean, I think first and foremost, my background as a freelance director uh, has deeply informed the way I think about artist care as now an artistic leader and a part of an organization, thinking about how we welcome folks into our space, particularly folks who haven't ever worked with us before. How do we help set expectations and offer clarity around the parameters so that there isn't a sense that, as a, that feeling as a director where you're like, the goalpost just moved, or like, you said we could have X and now you're saying we can't and it's too expensive. Like, what are you talking about? And so, just really thinking about wanting to maintain as much clarity and continuity in the experience as humanly possible, because I know that feeling. I've been there as a director freelancing. And, I think I maintain an awareness of and an empathy for the experience of full-time freelancers and just the labor that is and the uncertainty that lifestyle has. I was in it for a long time. So there's that piece. And then I think that, on the other side, I go into my freelance directing projects with empathy for the administrators and for the leaders and, awareness of the challenges that they're facing, because, while we're not a producing theater at the Playwrights Center, the challenges of the landscape currently they're affecting everyone, including us.
Yeah.
And we're all having to figure it out. And so, whenever I go into a freelance opportunity, I want to know from them, like, what are the community engagement plans for this production? How can I participate in that? How can I contribute to that? How can
That's
I
great.
help you, further deepen your relationships with your funders around this project? Because I know that, we want to do good work and we need people to keep writing those checks in order to keep doing good work. And that's just the bottom line. And I guess I would also say, I love my job at the Playwrights Center, and the rehearsal room is my happiest place, And so getting to be in the rehearsal room is what sustains the passion and the investment and the motivation around everything else, because that's what it's ultimately about. And so I do find that, like, when it's been too long since I've been in rehearsal, the leadership side of me starts to feel like a little wobbly.
Yeah.
And so, I've been in this season of my life really trying to figure out how I get to, again, have that balance, right? And make sure that all of those parts of what fulfill me and of the ways in which I believe I can be of service get to sort of coexist with each other.
I've been using this expression a lot lately: service, being of service, being useful.
Mm-hmm.
In the changing situation of the world that we're in, and asking what it is that we're doing. It's, where can I be the most useful? Where can I be of most service? That's glad you brought that up. You touched on this a little bit, but being a woman of color from the Middle Eastern background, as an actor, switching to being a freelance director, now being in an institutional leadership position, can you talk about what's the best way of saying it? The use of power. Who has it, who doesn't have it, who gets to wield it, how they get to wield it, from those freelance positions, actor, director, to now institutional. Can you talk just a little bit about that? Have you seen, is it getting better? Are we moving in the right direction? We still have a long way to go. What's it like?
Oh. I mean,
No,
well,
it's not getting better.
I mean, I think yes and no. I don't know where to start with this question except to say that I think that this regime has given permission culturally to backslide.
Yeah.
And I don't think that the theater has been immune to that backsliding. So there's that. But, going back a bit and thinking through sort of my positions in artistic leadership, starting at Geva and then at the Colorado Springs Fine Arts Center and now here, this is where I am now, is by far the most inclusive staff of which I've been a part, and it is still predominantly white. And there are, my boss is Nicole A. Watson. This is the first time that I'm working for a leader who is a woman of the global majority. And that's definitely different. But I've been in these positions where I'm the only one. At Geva, I was the only woman of color on the senior staff, and I was the first ever woman of color on the senior staff. And at that time, I saw it as this badge of honor, as opposed to a symptom of a failure of imagination.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And, there's no excuse for it. And so, and at the same time, there have been all of these leaders of color who've then gone into artistic leadership positions and have been set up to fail. And I think that, ultimately, in my moments of frustration, I thought to myself, as a theater, you don't have to be anti-racist. If you're not about it, don't do it.
Don't be a hypocrite about it.
And then we won't spend our money there, and you'll see what happens.
Right.
That's fine. So I'm at the point now where, also based on some of the experiences that I've had, where I'm I'm only interested in going somewhere where there is a full-throated commitment to, in my mind, quite simply reflecting the world we live in. Period. End of story. There is nothing I'm going to get on my high horse here for a second, but
please do.
There is
That's
nothing more hypocritical to me than to say that theater examines the human condition or explores what it means to be human, when at the same time making programming decisions and policy decisions and hiring decisions that communicate that you only consider certain people to be human. With the NEA of it all and all of those things, I understand the pressures, but, there are universities that are not backing down, that are not accepting this agenda. There are theaters that are rejecting NEA funding, that gave it back, that aren't applying for it. And I think that, in this moment, our work theater is inherently anti-fascist because it is a cornerstone of democracy. And so if that's what we're doing, then we got to do it,
Do it.
Yeah. And it's gotten a little, I think there's been a little regression. I'm not going to lie. I think there's been a little regression. And hey, now, we've seen it, also in the corporate world where Target's we're not going to do our EDI stuff anymore.
We'll show you.
Yeah. And and I think back to the summer that George Floyd was murdered and all of these theaters, posting their Black Lives Matter profile pictures and everything. And I understand that the administration has shifted their stance. And I know that there are a lot of people that are going along with it and enough people who sadly voted for that. And I think we have a responsibility to not only stay true to our values, but also communicate that it's more joyous doing it the way we're doing it.
It is. It really kind of
The
is.
work is better. The work is better. The vibes are better. It's, I don't know. I'm just I think the thing that we've maybe missed, and I don't know if this is a theater problem or a Democratic Party problem or both, is that there's I think that there's this sense that the anti-racism work is really serious and you have to really concentrate and what a buzzkill. And I'm just what if I actually think
what is joyous?
We're bring that, let's, and I think about shows Between Two Knees, that I don't know if you saw it, but it's this incredible show by the 1491s that Eric Ting directed. That's just this complete and utter send up of just, well, white colonialism. And like, I saw it at the Oregon Shakespeare Festival in Ashland, and, that's like a 90% white audience.
That's
And like, my face hurt from laughing. Like, and that was absolutely a play that was calling in and calling out like the history of this country and the original sins of this country. And I've never had a better time in my life. And so I think about, shout out Eric Ting, shout out the 1491s. I think about just like all the serious things that I'm saying, but like we can have a good time doing it. We should have a good time doing it.
Yeah.
I don't know if I answered your question at all.
No, it's great because I love this. You said I'm gonna get on my soapbox. I love the soapbox. I spend a lot of time there. But I love that Portland is showing us a way of protest that is joyous and like shows the futility and ridiculousness of the situation that they're in. Of like, oh, you're gonna come with tear gas and bulletproof vests. I'm gonna come with an inflatable dinosaur costume.
Yeah, try calling me an Antifa terrorist now.
Exactly.
I'm dressed up as a unicorn and I'm twerking.
Yeah. I'm naked biking through the city, the war zone city that
not all heroes wear capes. Some heroes wear nothing.
I've been somewhat fascinated about this lately. I'm of the belief that we're on the cusp of some pretty major change. Like 10 years from now, I don't think we're going to recognize the world that we live in. I think that AI, theater's going to be the only real thing that exists anymore. And so I'm hopeful about that. But I'm worried that if I believe that, we are on this right here, this cusp, what do I want to be making now in preparation for that? And I had this conversation with my students last week of saying, who's interested in a company? Who's interested in forming a company? And none of them were interested in forming a company. None of them were interested in that at all. They couldn't even fathom that idea. And I worried then, well, who's going to make that work then? How is that work going to get out there? Are we just giving it over to the gatekeepers that already exist? Because we know once you're in power, you're not usually one to give up that power. So what are you hopeful for in our industry now? As I'm sitting here pessimistically describing it.
Yeah.
Not pessimistically describing it. I do think that theater's going to be around. I just don't know what it's going to be.
Yeah.
And that's my worry.
Yeah, same. Yeah, it's such a tough question because I think about also like some of the things that folks were doing like in the 70s and 80s in New York. And what real estate prices were that allowed that to happen.
Exactly. Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
Although, hey, if Mamdani becomes mayor, maybe maybe there will be like a sort of like underground, like independent, like artistic theatrical renaissance in New York. And it's not that like those artists don't exist or that they're not making the work. Like it's happening. It's just there's just so little support. And yeah, I'm really concerned about both the theaters that have closed and the developmental organizations that have closed. And Playwrights Center, as far as like year-round developmental work is concerned, we're the last ones standing. And also theater can happen anywhere. It just needs an audience. And so I don't know about what the prognosis is for the sustainability of making a living as an artist. Something needs to really radically change, I think, in this country in order for that to happen. Not the least of which is disentangling healthcare from employment. I think the thing that makes me hopeful, it's the artists who are still doing their thing, and who aren't backing down from that. That's the thing, I think. And I think as long as that's happening, like it'll go, like the theater will go on,
Theater will go on.
It's just a question of where and how. And I think that it's going to keep polarizing as far as like the movie stars and the ticket prices of Broadway versus the scrappy self-produced work that happens in someone's living room. I think the middle class is shrinking. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I hope that we can turn the tide. But I think that, we need a different we need different federal leadership in order for that to happen.
3 more years.
Womp womp.
You talked about disentangling healthcare from work. You mentioned before you are a parent, you are a single mother, and we're in a field that doesn't talk enough about parenthood, family, the life outside of the rehearsal room.
Yep.
You alluded to it a little bit about saying, like, the world that you want to leave her. Can you talk a little bit what it means coming in as a parent now, as a mother now in rehearsal, how that shaped and changed those kind of things? Yeah.
Yeah.
You talk a little bit about that.
Oh, it's changed everything. I mean, it's, there are all these studies about how having a baby changes the birthing parent on a cellular level. And
Yeah.
I feel it. I feel it every day. I think about how it's changed me in a variety of ways. One of which is my time feels much more precious to me now. And the idea of spending it in a rehearsal room that is neither joyous nor productive really doesn't feel worth it.
Yeah.
Because I know that spending time with her is joyous. And taking time away to be in tech and not be there for bedtime has to mean that I'm spending it with people who are kind and who are rigorous and who, are operating with me working with me towards a shared goal and not being sort of bogged down by ego or insecurity. Not to say that those things don't come up, but they do.
Mhm. Yeah.
So my time and how I spend my time and making the decision to spend time away from her, it has to mean something. I also think she has, and the experience of having her has given me a very different ability to talk to actors and playwrights about plays and characters who, where like there is the presence of motherhood, the presence of parenthood, like my dramaturgy, that sort of dramaturgical toolkit has really been enhanced in that way. And
Yeah.
as
Expanded.
and the empathic imagination, because I like, if there's a character in labor, I know what a contraction feels like, and I know how long they can last. And I know how one makes it through such a thing. I still remember. And it's enriched my ability to talk about those things and work through them. And, there are times where my daughter just like inspires me before I go into rehearsal. And I mean, like I was doing King Lear this summer. It was my first professional Shakespeare. So I decided to really go for it.
Right. Let's jump into the deep end on that one. Damn.
And we set it was a contemporary setting, and where Lear was at the helm of an oil empire and was a billionaire. And we were really sort of looking at like the shift towards oligarchy and where we are in terms of like, seeing I'm really trying not to curse, seeing like Elon Musk and Peter Thiel and all these people like at the inauguration, and just like who has the front seat, who's is now in the greatest proximity to power. Anyway, so that later in the play, when Lear refuses to stay with either Goneril or Regan, he ends up in a sort of tent city of the unhoused, where with like the oil rigs in the background, our thinking being that he's facing now the economic disparity that he has sort of helped facilitate. And he enters in a scene with a shopping cart that he's found with all sorts of found objects from that tent city. And I had to rehearse that scene with wonderful actor Kevin Goodall, who played Lear that day. And it was after that morning where Mariam was like, my daughter was, I don't even remember what exactly, but she like took one thing, like she took a stick and she said it was her magic wand. And she was just endowing objects, right? And at this point in the play, the scene we were rehearsing, we're in Act 4. So at this point, Lear his madness has really sort of worsened. And I realized that the objects and were too like one-to-one. It was too like literal and actually the thing. And I was like, what if it's like totally not that? What it's like, what can we have in the shopping cart that you can pick up and endow as what you say it is, as opposed to it being the thing, like the prop, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And I don't know that I would have accessed maybe I would have gotten to the note anyway some other way, but that morning I was like, thanks, Mariam. Like, good job.
She jump-started it for you.
Yeah. And like, and just that, thinking about like the end of the play where like Lear actually becomes like quite childlike and in our production, like there were so many moments where I was giving a note that I knew came from watching my daughter be a toddler and, just be. And so, yeah, she's just just really like deepened my purpose, expanded my world, made me better in every way, and more tired. But yeah, I think like there's just a different kind of creativity that she has that inspires my creativity and my imagination, because like that's where kids live all the time. She's deeply imaginative, and that's, yeah, I try to carry that spirit into rehearsal now, like what if we play like children play? What if we really ask ourselves like what this could be, instead of sort of going to the first answer or the first common denominator or whatever,
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's a seismic shift. Yeah.
Has she seen your work, or she's still too young?
She didn't see Lear.
Yeah, maybe not a good one.
She's seen she's been in, it's been a long time since she's been in rehearsal. It's a lot easier when the babies are babies, because when they're not talking and moving around and stuff. Now she's so verbal and she's so chatty. She hasn't been, I've taken her to see other like shows at Children's Theater Company. And when she was like 6 months old, she was in the rehearsal room with me a lot when I was doing It's Christmas Carol, which was this sort of holiday spoof at OSF. And she watched she loved I remember like all the singing and dancing and the choreography and everything. And she was in the room, very regularly, because I was nursing at the time. And so the babysitter would just bring her in and I would nurse and she would watch. And it was really lovely and really sweet and very regulating, I must say. But since then, I don't think she's seen anything I've directed. I feel like, one of my sort of dreams is to do a show that she gets to come see. And, like getting to do something that's multi-generational, or, theater for young audiences, whatever term one likes to use. I don't know that I can think of anything more gratifying than to make a play that she sees, that she's inspired by, that she talks about. I'm sure she'll have notes for me. She's a little director too. Yeah. I think she was like,
you're raising a theater kid.
Oh my God. She was like a year and a half, maybe 2 years old. And she'd say, do a cat. And I would meow. And then she would say, do it big. And then I would meow louder. And then she'd be like, do it little. And then I'd do it smaller. And then she'd say, do too little. And I was like, this is 75% of directing right here. Like, I don't know how you cracked it so fast. You don't need those student loans. Go do it.
Thankfully.
Yeah, no, she's very she has leadership skills.
That's phenomenal. So when you had her, I'm glad you brought this up, because I did want to talk about this, of when you had her and when you were nursing and you had her in the room, as you said, it was gratifying, it was regulating. What are the unforeseen barriers that caregivers have, it's one of the, we're still the one industry that's allowed to discriminate in casting. And it's another place where we're never going to think about having daycare or, time off or, maternity, paternity leave. So like, what are the things that like, we're remaking theater, right? We're talking about it being, it's like, what do we want our theaters to look like in terms of those things?
Yeah. Well, first and foremost, childcare. Like that's especially when I go do a job out of town, I can't spend my whole fee on babysitters. And that, that has to be factored in the budgeting of hiring. And we have at Playwrights Center, part of our budget, there is a line item that's just for accessibility. And that's for, if we have artists who need interpreters, if we have artists who are parent artists who need help with childcare in order to be able to do the job, because we're not paying enough, the base fee, and we pay respectably, but that isn't like that whole fee will get eaten by a babysitter if there isn't separate funds for childcare. And I have worked at theaters where they've said, hey, the Notre Dame Shakespeare Festival was like, we would like you to do King Lear. We will provide the childcare. It was in their first offer. It wasn't something I had to fight for. There have been times where I have had to fight for it. And there have been times where I've taken a hit financially to do the job because I love the writer or I, love the play. I want to continue with it, especially in a sort of developmental context. And I think that like the industry and everyone, and this isn't just a theater problem, but I think that there's always a bias and an assumption that parents have free childcare they can access, whether that is a co-parent or a grandparent or something. And, my parents love my daughter to the moon and back, and they are not able-bodied to take care of her. And, and I think that like that is going to be an issue, I think, actually more and more as people are having kids later and later in life, and which means the grandparents are older and so forth and so on. So, I feel like there are times where I just kind of want to like fly a banner around that says like, not every parent is partnered, not every parent is wealthy, not every parent has able-bodied grandparents who are retired and can just volunteer their time. And for the people who have those things, like, I'm very happy for you. Feel free to share. But and this isn't begrudging people who have those things, but those are privileges and those aren't things that everyone has. I would love for us to think about those things like when budgets are being made. And so it isn't like, well, where are we going to pull that money from? Like if you have the accessibility line in your budget, if you have the childcare line in your budget, that's where it gets pulled.
You'll figure it out. Yeah,
then you have the money. You allocated it already. And I also think that there needs to be more conversation around like span of day, and we did 5-day rehearsal weeks because I was like, listen, y'all, people need to memorize their lines, and doing that on one day off, that's not a day off. That's a working day, right? B, I'm also working for Playwrights Center. So we would rehearse Tuesday through Saturday. Sunday was like my really full day with my kiddo. And then Monday, I was packing in a lot of work for Playwrights Center before going back to rehearsal the following day. So, so thinking about like the structure of the week, the timing of the breaks, even, like I was so lucky when I did a show at the Geffen, I got to put her to bed every night before the previews, and like that, just like that made a difference in my ability to maintain balance, right? Coming back to the chair and for her to stay regulated through that experience. And that can, it's just not hard. Like it just takes some more conversation and some more planning, but it isn't hard. It isn't hard to do these things. And, I know I keep bragging about how thoughtful we are at the Playwrights Center, but I'm going to brag a little bit more that, we have a closet here where we have a baby bathtub stored and a pack and play and, like a few other things so that when somebody comes here with their kid, they're not like, oh man, how am I going to, how am I going to entertain the child? How am I going to entertain the child? How am I going to give the child a bath? I mean, there are, like the amount of stuff I travel with now has like quadrupled. It is insane. There will be multiple bags. And then in just one corner, I have like 2 sweaters and a pair of pants. And like, and my child's a bit of a fashionista. So we have to travel with a lot of options. But, whatever you can do, I would just say like both literally and figuratively to lighten the load for a parent artist. Give them one less thing to worry about, one less thing to think about. Another example of this, New Harmony Project, who I've worked with a couple times, and I'm going back to Indianapolis in November to direct a workshop, they always add to the fee. They provide childcare, and that's just part of the offer. B, the fee is totally respectable. And C, they add a parent stipend. And because they say, like, we know that traveling with children adds expenses to the trip. So this stipend is for those expenses. And so it's, again, acknowledging that, like, there's a difference between the things you pay to do the job and the pay you receive for doing the job, and that those two things should not be the same. And I just think, like, yes, we're in a moment of scarcity and funding crises and all of those things, but, like, maybe we do a little less and we do it better, or, in order to, or maybe there are other ways we can think about saving money that can also be environmentally sustainable in terms of, like, production materials and scenic materials and whatnot. I think there are other ways. I think there are other ways to, like, center the people and have the money to support the people in doing their best work without edging them out of the industry, which has happened to so many people, which hasn't, fight against it every day. I feel like it could happen. It could easily happen if not for the fact that I am very stubborn and refuse to let it.
Yeah, this industry does it. It doesn't cut off. It just slowly dwindles the IV tube until you.
Yeah, it's just like a little nudge. It just keeps nudging you out of the frame,
Yeah.
And, as far as I'm concerned, like, the notion that when someone has a kid, and I've heard people just like, well, are they directing like they had a baby, and it's like, yeah.
Right.
Yeah. We let me tell you, like, we can walk and chew gum, and
you can do a lot.
You want someone to get shit done, call a single parent,
Yeah.
If anything, I really think, and I think I've said this, like, having my daughter has actually, again, deepened my purpose, and like, she is the reason for my greatest ambition. It's all for her. It's all for her and for everyone's children. That's the bottom line. So, like, the idea that a person no longer cares about their career because they've had a child, I just think is absolutely ridiculous.
We've been, the work that we're doing, the project, our sustainable theater project that I run at the UN Climate Conference, has been about shifting people's mindsets to think about themselves as an ancestor. And a parent inherently gets that. A parent inherently gets, like, okay, I'm not just doing this for my daughter, I'm doing this for my grandchildren.
Mm-hmm.
The lineage that will continue on, or maybe not, but the idea that, like, something will come after me.
Yeah.
Getting that shift has been an incredibly moving thing, but also an incredibly difficult thing. That in this solipsistic, very egocentric society that we live in, to say, you're an ancestor. Maybe not, your DNA, but, like, your ideas and your contributions pass on. That's getting them to think about that.
Yeah.
Which brings up something I was thinking about earlier, what we were talking about, like, post-2020 George Floyd. I wonder how much of the "we see you, white American theater" has, like, there were 200 things on that list. So half of them, a quarter of them, like, I don't know if there's been enough change or enough of recognition of that since then. I would really love to hear how the progress of that has gone.
Yeah, it doesn't seem great from where I'm sitting. I feel again, like, I feel really proud to work at an organization where, there isn't, there's never a year where we look at our writers and are like, oh boy, they're all white, or they're all like, it's the sort of the DEI is built in.
Yeah.
Take that, Stephen Miller. Can you imagine if he just listened to this podcast randomly?
Yeah, he's a subscriber to the Board of Directors podcast.
Hi, Stephen.
I might need to shut down the podcast if that's the case.
No, I think we're gonna fly under the radar, at least for a little while.
I think we'll be safe. I think
they're like, who we really need to. We need to find those theater terrorists.
She admitted she was Antifa.
I think better to be Antifa than Fa, like if
Please, yeah.
I'm proudly Antifa. We never look at our season and we've never had a draft of a season in the time that I've been here where there's been a problem of inclusion or a lack of inclusion, I should say. We also don't sell tickets. All of our events are free, which presents its own challenges, but also means that, there is no version of like, we need to do a Christmas Carol at the Playwrights Center. Right?
Yeah.
I do still think that like we are in a place of, if I zoom out, of like a kind of binary thinking of like this show can make money or this show can include oft excluded voices. Never the two shall meet. And I think that there is clear evidence that that's not true. Thinking and there are moments that have given me hope, seeing that like English went to Broadway, and I still find that like the field doesn't yet hold like a multiplicity of Middle Eastern voices. It tends to be, I still find like for global majority work, like one at a time. And I would like to see us expand our imaginations a bit. And the other thing that I just keep thinking about, and like this is less directorial, but more sort of on the leadership side of things, is like our audiences are changing. Funding is changing. Everything's changing, but our marketing has stayed exactly the same.
Yeah.
And I don't think you can build new pathways into the theater doing it the same old way. And I haven't really seen that side of the work be deeply interrogated in a way that matches the innovation of form of the work. Like if the form of the work is changing, the form of how the work is discussed, marketed, presented also needs to change.
Working on it, Pirronne. I'm working on it.
Great.
This has been a long-term project of mine that I've been working on for a while, and audience making is the term that I'm using for it right now.
I love that.
We understand if you say theater making, you know what you're talking about. Mm-hmm. Do the same with an audience, and it encompasses. It means bringing all those departments that don't normally talk to each other, make them creatives instead of like administratives. Like all of that. How do I put a brain in the seat? I don't care about the butt. I want the brain. How do I engage them from the second they know about it to about 2 weeks afterwards? Because that's the length of the play in my mind. And all of that is creative potential that we're just wasting.
Yeah.
So to be confirmed,
let me know.
Hopefully we'll be rolling it out. I'm trying. A question from one of my students, which has been something that floored me and has stuck with me. And I've asked the other directors who've been on the podcast. So I'm going to ask you, what is a play that has changed your habits, either as a person or as a director?
Whoa. A play that has changed my habits. That I directed or that I saw?
I'd say saw. Something that you as an audience member saw and then were like, either go back into your own rehearsal room and go, well, I got to do this differently, or in your life that just is like, there was the Pirronne before that show and there was the Pirronne after that show.
Wow, that is such a good question. Will you tell me yours? And then let me noodle for a second. Tell me yours.
So I originally said Sleep No More, not because I thought it was the greatest show ever, but because it was on for so long. I saw it like 15 or 16 times, and I got to see it for different reasons. But in conversation with Anne, it changed because actually it was Aria Minushkin. Seeing Aria Minushkin Les Ephémères that came to the Lincoln Center Festival. We went on a trip. We went to Paris with her. We went to her Aria Minushkin's theater, and seeing this all led to my audience making, which was you have a meal with the company, you sit down, you break bread and have soup. You walk through the dressing room to get to the theater. Aria Minushkin is standing at the door. You shake hands with this little grandmother-looking lady. During intermission, the company comes out and brings you tea and cookies. And like the whole atmosphere of it made me think of the play is just the centralizing event for something much larger. for community making.
Mm-hmm.
And that play I saw in the midst of grad school. And I can say that there was Adam before that, and then Adam ever since then has been, how do I pull these things together
Mm-hmm.
to create community? And the play is the play, but the community always changes.
Yeah. I think that, like, similarly for me, it was The Lily's Revenge at Here, which was this Taylor Mack piece that had 5 acts and 5 different directors, if I'm remembering correctly. And I think Rachel Chafkin was one of them. And it was like 6 hours long. And I went with my friend Erin. And I remember more of the experience than like specific moments on stage, where before we were brought in, and we were always like, there was just always a sense that like we were just being so well taken care of as an audience. And in like a sort of pre-show speech that happened in the lobby, they said like, I think there were like 3 intermissions, and they were like, you can please don't look at your phone during the first 2 intermissions, and you can look at your phone during the third if you have to, but like if you don't, then don't, is what I vaguely remember them saying, some version of. And it meant that people talked to each other. And I was there with my friend, and I've been to the theater so many times where I've gone with a friend and only ever talked to that friend, or I've gone alone and haven't talked to anyone. And this was like the first time that I felt like I connected with other audiences in a way that then informed the play. Like the intermissions and the community of the intermissions changed how I watched the play. And there were parts of it where we could, like, where we were seated in such a way that you saw audience all around you. And like that just felt different because we had talked to each other. I remember leaving there thinking, what if it always could feel like this in some way,
Yeah.
Like sort of getting rid of that sense of anonymity. And it informed some work that I made after that. It was one of the big inspirations for a project that I did many years later. And it continues to live with me when I think about audience making, as you said, and which I love that terminology so much more than marketing. And yeah, and just like what is it we say we're about, and are we doing the thing we say we're about when we do it? Going back to that, like if we say we're about the human condition and exploring what it means to be human, then isn't that also humans in relationship to each other? Not just on stage, but off stage.
Not just on stage. We're not here to passively consume that thing that's over there 20 feet away.
Right.
But what's around us.
Yeah.
Can you give me 3 directors that excite you right now? I'm just basically asking for who else should I ask onto the podcast.
Who should you ask onto the
people that you're excited about, the work that you're seeing their work, or of their work, or you follow them somehow and go, they're always choosing something really exciting, or they're on the cusp of, or yeah.
I'm going to say Hamid Degani, who's a Chicago-based Iranian director. Did a beautiful production of English at the Guthrie, and it was a co-production with the Goodman, and himself lived the experience of learning English as a second language and coming to the United States. He's definitely one. I think Tara Ahmadinejad is making some cool stuff.
Yeah.
I haven't gotten to see her work in a while, but I've just always found her so interesting. And, I know she's like on every podcast and she's very busy, but I'm a big admirer of Whitney White.
Thank you for those names.
Yeah, no problem. Let me know if you need some email addresses too.
I'll probably, I'll definitely hit you up about that. Pirronne, it's been far too long. I'm so happy for you and so glad to see you happy as well. And thank you so much for joining me this morning. I know you're a very, very busy person, and to take the time out to do this
made my day. Are you kidding me? This made my day. Thank you.
Made my day as well. Thank you so much. Thank you. this episode gave you any insight, inspiration, or even just made you smile, please subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts for more conversations like this. And if you're looking for guidance with a creative challenge or want to advance a dream of your own, we'd love to help. Visit boardofdirectors.world. The Board of Directors is a global constellation of theater directors dedicated to building community, sharing knowledge, and transforming the role of the director in the 21st century. We convene and curate a fellowship that fosters mentorship, artistic inquiry, and collective care, transcending borders and institutions and traditions. Until then, take care of yourself and take care of each other.